Hey guys, Pete here with Garnet Technologies, and today we're going to be discussing offsets and what it means to set an offset. And I'm going to try to keep it super simple. Offsets are something that we get phone calls on a lot. And to be honest, if you don't set an offset every day or don't do it very often, it's easy to forget some of the steps and some of the information. So hopefully this video at the end you'll be confident in setting your offset in your display so that your display reads out as accurately as possible. What we're going to talk about first is a little bit of background of the 810X cinder bar and some of the terminology that goes along with offsets so that we can kind of clarify some of the confusion that often occurs. So the 810X cinder bar has a circuit on the inside with switches that go all the way up and down the tube, and the float activates these switches, and then the cinder bar will send an inch value to the display. One key note is the cinder bars have nothing to do with gallons or barrels. The cinder bar only sends an inch value. And this inch value, we call it the bar inch or bar inches. And we call them the bar inches because they differ from the physical inches of measurement. So when we get an 810X cinder bar from our manufacturing plant, they are 91 inches long. We cut them to fit the internal diameter of the tanks that they're going in, and when we make those cuts, those switches do not change their inch value. What that means is we have to offset to account for the shortening of the bar, and we also have to account for the float being up off the bottom of the trailer about 5 inches. So that's what it means when we say offset. That's what we're offsetting. So again, bar inches are the inch values being transmitted by the cinder bar. And you may hear us talk about over the phone the empty inch value. Well, that is the inch value when the float is at the bottom of the tank resting on the float support. There are two main ways to set an offset. You can set the bottom reading, and you can also adjust the offset when you have some information, and I'll get into that further a little bit later. So let's talk about put some visual to an offset. So I have a little diagram here that shows simulates a bar being installed inside of the tank. So we have the bottom of the tank here, top of the tank here, head of the bar, the float support, the bar being installed, and then the float itself. So this bar would have been cut specifically for the internal diameter of this tank, and it's been installed properly 2 inches off the bottom of the trailer. And the tank is empty, floats all the way at the bottom. At this point, the float is sending an inch value through the bar to the display. And that's what we call the empty inch value, is like we discussed earlier. So the float's all the way at the bottom, it's sending that inch value, and that's our empty inch value. So when we set the empty offset, this is a number, the empty inch value, that we have to have. It's the first part of the equation. And just like we've talked about with calibrations and with the programmer so far, this inch value is going to be directly linked to a calibration, barrels or gallons. You notice that the float is sitting about 5 inches off of the bottom. The float support itself is about 3.5 inches, and an inch and a half up on the float is where the magnetic field picks up the reed switches. So it's about 5 inches off the bottom. When we set the empty reading, and we've gotten our empty inch value, then that's one part of the equation. So we need to find out the gallon or calibration value. And the way we do that is if we look at our raw chart here, raw calibration chart, we notice that at the 5-inch value, because we are physically 5 inches off the bottom of the tank, our 5-inch value is looks like 2.7 barrels. We're going to be working in barrels, so that's what my empty reading. So when the float is at this level right here, I will have 2.7 barrels in my tank. So let's look at a little bit how to do that on the programmer. In the programmer, I already have the calibration in there. So the first thing I would need to do is get that empty inch value. It's the first part of the equation, so I need that empty inch value. The way we do that is we'll take the fiber, unplug the fiber from the display, and plug it into this black fitting up here at the top. When you do so, you'll see the number of bits pop up and the optic power pop up. Once you have the fiber plugged in, make sure it's plugged in all the way, you're going to hit the bar button one time. Just click it. As you can see, my inch value went to Noel, and I don't have a light flashing, so that's the reason why it says Noel. But when you hit that bar button, the inch value that the bar is reporting at that time is going to show up in the inches value. That is your empty inch value. Record this number. Keep track of it. It'll make things easier in the future if you ever have to do some work on that trailer again. So record that piece of information. The empty inch value should never change. If the bar was installed properly and the compression fitting was locked like it should be, that empty inch value is never going to change. So keep record of that. So we have our first part of our formula here. So for this example, we're going to assume that I've plugged my fiber in from the bar, and I've hit the bar button, and it's given me a reading of 14.66 inches. Okay, so I'm going to document that down. 14.66 inches equals the 5-inch mark on my calibration chart. So if I get my calibration chart out here, which we've already looked at, it's given me 2.7 barrels at 5 inches. So now I know that 14.66 inches should equal 2.7 barrels. That is our offset. So let's set those numbers in our programmer. In the inches calibration here, I'm going to inch up or down, and I'm going to get to the 14.66 inch value. If you've plugged the fiber in and you've hit the bar button, 14.66 should be still in the inch window. But if it's not, get to it. So 14.66, and right now it's currently saying 4.1. Well, we know that's not right. We know that we want 14.66 to equal 2.7. So now I'm going to use the offset arrows to go down to 2.7. I have just set the empty reading offset. Now, this calibration, if we didn't need to do anything else, this calibration would be ready to program back into a display. So that's how we set our empty reading. If you have a question on how we came up with the 2.7, again, the physical inches that the float is off the bottom of the trailer is about 5 inches. So I went to my strapping chart or my calibration chart, and I found the 5-inch mark, and that told me how much product I have when there's 5 inches in the tank. And that's how I came up with the 2.7. The other way to, and arguably it's the best way to set an offset, is typically the empty reading is what you're going to do first, and it's going to be really close and it's going to be pretty accurate. But if you want to take that next step and make it even more accurate, have your drivers record some information for you when they go out to haul a load. The first piece of information that you will need is what did the 808P2 or the display read when he was completely full or loaded. So let's say for this example, your driver loaded 75 barrels into the tank, and 75 barrels is what the display was reading. We're going to record that information. That would be a piece of information that the driver needs to report back to you. So he loaded 75 barrels, and that's what the display read. What he actually had in the tank was about 78 barrels. That's the second piece of information, so I'm going to write that down. So the display was reading 75 when he actually had 78. So when he comes back in and he tells you that information, you can take and copy the calibration out of that display, get it into your programmer, and you're going to inch up to what the display was reading. So the display was reading 75 barrels. So I'm going to hold the inches arrow down till I get to 75 barrels, or as close to it as I can. 75.1. So that's what my display was reading, but we know that's not accurate. The display was off about 3 barrels. So if the driver can tell you what he actually had in the tank, so for this case, he tells you 78 barrels. Now I can use my offset arrow to offset up to that 78 number or as close as possible. So if you notice, with us inching up to the 75.1 barrel value here, that value is directly linked to this inch value. So when the float is at the 62.33 inch mark, the display was reporting out 75.1. So what we want to tell the display or tell the calibration is, at this same inch value, we actually want you to read out 78. So I will offset up to as close to 78 as possible, 78.2. There we go. So now I'm ready to reprogram my display, and my offset is going to be right on. It's going to be very accurate. This is the best way to set an offset. I know sometimes it's extremely hard to get the information needed to set this offset, but if you can get it, it takes you one time to adjust it, and you'll never have to do it again unless something gets damaged. So at that point, we've simulated 2 ways of how we set the offset. Okay, and I hope it's been really clear for you and helped you understand what we're doing and what we're talking about when we set an offset. And one of the most important things, how I see offsets get way off, is by accidentally pressing these offset arrows. If you accidentally press an offset arrow 2, 3, 4 times, then your accuracy is going to be way off. So it's very important to only use these when you're setting the offset. And if you're just wanting to take a look at the calibration, use the inches arrows. You're not going to have any mistakes if you're using the inches arrows there. So most of the time, that's what I see. When an offset gets adjusted incorrectly, it's usually because they've mistakenly hit the offset arrows when they really didn't need to. So pay attention to that. So that's the most simple way that I could explain the offsets, and I hope it's been easy for you, and you've been able to understand it. If you have any questions, email me, Pete at garnettechnologiesinc.com, or give me a call, 817-578-8601, and I'll be more than happy to help you through it. Watch this video as many times as you want. Practice with it a couple of times. Once you kind of get the hang of it, do it a few times. You'll kind of understand it and grasp it a little bit more. So again, have a good day. If you need anything, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you.